Yeah, I don't think anybody ever really, thinks about, "Oh, I'm going to go to university and get into search." Unless you had a family member in the business, the industry doesn't even exist for the most part. So I got into search because I went to school as an engineer and spent a couple of years as an engineer and really enjoyed it, but I knew I wasn't cut out for corporate. Growing up, I was always in the principal's office anyway throughout school. So I've always had, there's that lovely story that's about entrepreneurs or just criminals who haven't been prosecuted yet. Like there's a direct relationship. So I spent a couple of years as an engineer, enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the problem solving, enjoyed sort of creating things, but never was fulfilled in a corporate environment. So I decided, let me go into business for myself. And I walked into a headhunter's office just by happenstance, Sebastian Delosi, who was sort of my mentor. And he was supposed to place me. And instead of placing me, he talked me into joining the business. And I had one question for him, like, okay, what did your top salesperson make last year? He told me, I said, I'm in. And that was December 2nd, 1989. So I got into search, and I told him I was going to work for him for 2 years and then open up my own business. And it was 2 years and about 4 weeks to the day, and got into search that way. And it's arguably probably one of the best 3 decisions I ever made. 30 years to do anything is a long time. 30 years to do anything at the elite level that we do it at is even, a longer time. So when you raise that balance beam 6 inches off the ground, but then you raise it 50 feet off the ground, dynamics change. So, people talk about 3-peats and 4-peats and all kinds of sports. We continue 30 years to dominate this industry. And I think that's what drives some of my retention to this, is always to be best in class. And can I outdo myself? Or can the firm outdo itself as well? Because after a while, the numbers matter less, and the ability to create a breakaway category and talent access has been really my inspiration. So until TMG came along over the last few years, nobody ever thought about incorporating data analytics into search. Nobody ever thought about incorporating media into search. Nobody ever thought about creating an entire media agency compounded and bolted onto a search firm, and then bring that as a series of products or offerings to clients. And I think that's what keeps me coming back from an industry search perspective. But what I think really keeps me coming back is that we service health tech, med tech, and helping people live longer, healthier lives and having a direct impact on that. I do believe I'd be in search if I was running an accounting search firm, but I don't think I would skip to the office every day as quickly as and intently as I do because of the health tech, med tech industry we serve. In 1992, I opened up a search firm. In 2015, we made a conscious decision to build a business that happened to be a search firm. And those are 2 different mindsets. And we've incorporated, again, a 7,000 square foot media entity between production facilities and editing rooms. We've got a 10,000 square foot search firm in Delray. We've got a facility in the UK with partners there. We're looking around the globe right now in different regions. We're opening up potentially in Israel, in New York City. We're talking about north of the border in Canada. Why are we opening? Because there are different mindsets and there's a diversity of thought in different parts of the world. And also, I think we're becoming a global organization where I want somebody in Delray to say, you know what? I think I might want to move into the media side of the search business. Or somebody who's in search, say, I want to stay in search, but I want to go snowboard in Canada for the season. Or somebody who's like, I'd like to return to my roots in Israel for an entire year and work out of the Israeli facility. That's what I want to see over the next 24, 36 months with TMG is it's where you live your life and you build a career. And I think every single person who's still in TMG today and who left TMG over the years could say that they became a better person because they were part of the organization. When we interview people, it's really important that they understand what they're walking into. This is not for everybody. And I don't mean the search business. I mean being a member at TMG, whether you're at TMG 360 or TMG Search, or you're at DragonFly, or in the interim side of our business. It's high accountability, low maintenance. It's we will tell you right away, and I'm proud to say that I care less about your comfort than I do about your personal and professional development. And that's sincere. I think that reeks of an everyday practice within the organization. Because you're not even anything near your potential when you walk into TMG. I would say that more people realize their potential and realize breakthrough characteristics that maybe have been suppressed or unable to express in other careers or other places they worked. This organization is fertile for that exploration of who you could potentially be. And we will make sure that we challenge you every day when you come in here. And that's not for everybody. That's not for the faint of heart. And this is interesting to ask people who work here is, what does fulfillment mean to you? And is it work related, or is it who you're becoming because you work here related? So I think those are powerful characteristics of the organization on a whole. The only thing I can say about culture at TMG is high accountability, low maintenance. You have to be really smart. You have to be coachable. You have to put logo, team, self in that order all the time. And if you put logo, team, self in that order all the time, the self always gets served. And we're not taught that growing up, right? Most of us aren't. Most of us are taught to serve ourselves. And if it works out for the team, cool, and for the company you work for. I do believe that if you solicited people here in their first week, at the end of their first year, and at the end of their third year, there's a metamorphosis that takes place is if I serve that logo. And I don't mean that like service to the man. I'm like, the ethos and North Star that the organization represents is logo. It's not the three people on the letterhead. It's what is the ethos of what we are pursuing. Like that, we will never reach what we pursue, and we shouldn't. That's really critical to understand when you come here. Like the bogey that we put on the table for you, you will never achieve by design, because you'll blow by it or it'll be reimagined, but you'll never become frustrated by that goalpost potentially moving. So the logo's the ethos, the team or the people that you're surrounded with in your foxhole, and the self. If you serve those two well, and honestly, you will become the best version of yourself you could be. That's an overused term, but it's as best as I can express it. The ethos of TMG is to create breakaway models, dislocated. People like to use disruptive. Disruptive to me is a speed bump. Like that disrupts your ride, but it doesn't take you off the track. To me, a dislocated approach to solving a business problem, opportunity, challenge is create a brand new category. A dislocated category that our competitors, no matter how hard they press down on their gas pedal, still are on the same track. And they only go faster on the existing track. Again, coming back to media, attention awareness strategies, using technologies to approach the market, becoming the voice of an entire industry is what the ethos is of the organization, no matter what we undertake, whether it's branding, awareness, full-time employment, interim executive search, and consulting to our clients. We do it in a way that oftentimes the market can't connect with in the first taste of it, but after they taste it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so obviously powerful for us. How come nobody else is doing that? I think that's the ethos of TMG. In the TMG companies, there's a couple different businesses, and they're all run as separate businesses, but they're all in the same space, and they all have the same shared leadership. And the reason for that is, we're moving towards a world of specialization. And in that world of specialization, everybody loves the commodity of a Swiss Army knife. You get the knife, you take it out, and it's got the corkscrew and the blade and the saw. And while it's cool and novel, it doesn't do any job really well. And invariably, it gets put in the drawer and it finds its way to the back of the drawer. What we've done at TMG is not just been a search firm that happens to do social media or be a search firm that makes some videos, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it's not, with a Sony camera and a college kid. We've committed full tilt to a separate production company, DragonFly Stories, in its own facility, 160 Studios, that is built as a world-class facility that stands on its own, but it doesn't have to stand on its own. We have a full-time search practice of, I don't know what it is, coming up on 16, 17 search consultants that work around the world, that is best in class, has the highest per desk average in the entire search industry because of the talent and the training in there. You know, we have TMG 360 Media, which is a joint venture, a JV between Lobline, which was a world-class PR firm out in LA that represented some very high-level names that, you know, I'll let them brag about, but you can go to Lobline. So each of those businesses stand on their own, but they're all in aggregate complement each other. And what they all have in common, beside talent access world, is an insane commitment to the highest performance per person who is part of the team that you can ever imagine. Each of our team members are force multipliers. So we take that high accountability, low maintenance. We take smartest, best in class athlete. And there are some athletes who are part of, say, marketing. You know, we've got a member of our marketing team that sits at the top of each of those food chains. And then we've got other people who cross-fertilize. And because they're so smart and they can move so fast and they get the concept of the TMG ethos, that they easily integrate into those teams. And it makes it interesting that when you go home every day, you're not doing the same thing at TMG, no matter what your role is. What's changed about search quite a bit over the last few years is when you had a search firm, your database was your gold, right? You coveted that. Back in the day, and the day was only less than 10 years ago before LinkedIn really got traction as a tool. Your database was half the value of your search firm. And again, data does beautiful things. It makes things sort of inconsequential over time because data is very perishable. And so everybody has access to the same people. So your database is no longer relevant. What is relevant are your relationships and how you form and maintain those. What is also relevant is how do you message to those markets? And that message is the quality of the message. And the quality of the message gets determined by a few things. One is, how much do you know about that industry? Are you an industry expert? Do you speak the industry speak? We do that extraordinarily well because we've been at it for 30 years, one. Number two is our training gets deep into technology, psychology, sales techniques, tactics. So then we know what we're talking about. We understand that industry. And then we have, it's not a secret weapon anymore. We have a weapon that cannot be sort of rivaled. We have a media mindset of we happen to be a media company that does search. And it's a little sublime to explain it that way, but it helps you have the differential. We do media really well. I really think we're a media company that happens to do search as well. So long form, short form video. You know, talented people from around the entertainment industry that have chosen to see the future and get in on it, and maybe even create the future from their skills, from world-class editors, world-class storytellers, world-class camera operators. So we use that media to tell stories on behalf of our client and then deliver them with an expert point of view in the industry that differentiates us, a clear distant second from anybody behind us. Yeah. When we constructed the firm, almost 3 decades ago, it's fun because I still have the original notes from that, and it's a little eerie that if I look at them today, I could have written those notes 30 days ago because it does reflect. And that either shows me as being able to execute on a vision or really limited in my thinking. I got stuck to that pad. So it depends on who you're asking on that. But we chose medtech for a couple reasons, and medtech, health tech, and I'll bounce in between both those terms because there is a transition going on in that, which is exciting if you're in the search business because medtech is creeping into the consumer market. If you just look at the watches we wear and the passive monitoring systems we have around our house, they're sort of monitoring our health. But we picked medtech because we have an aging population. We picked medtech because people wanted to not live longer exclusively, but live healthier longer. And then it also has a built-in governor to it. It's called the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. Historically, the medtech industry only grows at about 8% per year. But within that 8% per year growth, it never has a crash. And so there are some industries that grow at 30, 40% per year, but invariably housing market, dot-com bubble, you can go through those hyper growth, you always have a crash. But in my 8% growth per year, there are micro markets within that grow at 30, 40, 50%. So what we've done really extraordinarily well is identify the emerging markets, identify the venture capital money and the private equity money that goes into that. Why is that important? Because speed to market is critical. And so companies will spend the money from a private equity perspective, from a venture capital perspective, in order to get the best people. They'll pay for force multipliers. There's no corporate bloated movement holding back us to accelerate people through hiring processes. And quite honestly, it sets up well because we want to go after the people who want to go to the leading edge of technology and take that so-called risk. And so when we call those people, they can't run fast enough to companies that are pushing the edge. I don't want to recruit for companies that are big sort of juggernauts where you're happy to be a number lost in the cog of wheels, right? So I want to go after the people who are wing walkers to go to companies that want to change the world, and it revolves around healthcare, health tech. And one last thing, health tech, med tech, healthcare is the #1 industry in the world next to education. Everything else is below that. There's more money spent in every country, on every continent, revolving around healthcare more than any other industry. And so if you can swallow that and then be able to parse out the leading edges of those industries, you can build a substantial career around that. One of the things we've done really well in the firm is become students of the industry. I think after your first year, maybe your second year, I would say most of our team members are able to sit down with a Wall Street analyst and talk about the state of the medtech, health tech market from a publicly traded and private traded perspective. And that's really important because that allows us to get the trust of the leaders in these emerging tech companies. So now you've got the trust, which then leads to intimacy and very candid conversations. And if you're naturally curious and you have a high intellect and you like to hang around with smart people who like to get things done, that is what that consultative approach is that we have earned over the years, and we continue to strive to make sure that we are demonstrating that in the marketplace using our media arm. So you have leaders in our organization developing content that has our customers, the venture capital community, the startup community, the private equity community, go, wow, Holly really knows her stuff. Matt really knows his stuff. Gio really knows his stuff, because we showcase our expertise without pounding our chests, but giving tremendous value to the market at no cost. People read it and go, they know the industry, I'm going to give my business to them. And that leads to sort of this beautiful cycle. It's like a circumnavigation about we give, you give to us. We give, you give to us. You give us knowledge where the market's going. We then take that and then extrapolate it out so we can share that with the talent that wants to be on the leading edge of tech. Medical device is a broad category. And every single component in that ecosystem is really important. The organizations we work with typically are on the fringe of what is coming in medtech, right? So a hospital bed is very important. A catheter is very important. An IV bag is very important. They don't need us to find the world-class thinkers and innovators in order to get that done. You know, that's like the middle of the curve. The middle of the curve is like those people are solid blocking and tackling talent. Where we shine is in that upper percentile of force multipliers, highly educated, highly talented, specialized in all of the technology that you won't see in an OR or a hospital or a cath lab today, but you will likely see it in 3 to 5 years from now. And that brings me back to, you need that natural curiosity in this business. You need to be intrigued by technology, and then you want to care about people. And if you've got those three, this is something that you may want to lean into to learn a little bit more about. Invariably, when I do a post-mortem on somebody who didn't work out here, we interview for intelligence here. We interview for conscientiousness and organizational and drive. What I think the common denominator, and it's just come to me recently, the common denominator of why somebody doesn't work out after they make it through our interview battery, and it's fair to call it that for your sake as well as our sake, is it's really hard for us to determine what your true curiosity around a subject is, or your true ability to be curious about yourself, about other people, about the technology, about what somebody else in a desk next to you is doing. That, I think today I can honestly say, is the one common characteristic of why people don't succeed here, because we've done a good job of interviewing for everything else. So if somebody out there has a curious quotient factor test I can do, I'd like to know what it is. What's really interesting too, and it really resonates with some people more than others in our organization, is the relationships we get, but especially the international relationships. So we're in Israel, we're in Germany, we're in the UK, we're in Italy. We are really truly global. I mean, we've got a client right now that has got us in Raleigh-Durham, is going to have us in Israel, going to have us in Japan, in order to help them solve some problems. And not all of them are recruiting problems, right? They're business problems, they're media problems, they're hiring talent problems, there's consulting. So when you think of TMG in Delray Beach and us opening in the UK and having other offices, that's not the only geography that we span. You know, we're dealing with international cultures, international behaviors. And again, it's that curiosity thing. And some of our best recruiters and leaders in the organization have this insane need to travel, need to internationally rub elbows with people, and have a sort of vicious sense of curiosity around the world, about the world, I should say. And that's important to understand, that you can sit here in Delray, but travel the world with relationships and clients and technologies that I don't know many organizations you can do that with. It's the personal development of each team member. I think that's what gets me up every morning. You can stack up as many placements as you want. You can buy as many cameras as you want. You can get more square footage that you want. You can open up real estate around the world. But I think what really gets me fired up is watching the personal development of teammates, and then the intermingling of their lives with each other. While they still respect each other's privacy, as an elite team of performers, they do care about each other without getting in each other's business. And that's a very unique proposition here. And they also lift each other up. I mean, I don't know an organization, and we've got some executives that have joined our organization from other industries, and invariably they tell me, especially in the first 6 months, they're fascinated by the genuineness, the intelligence, and the work rate of every person here. So answering the question, again, long-winded, is I love watching each person develop along their journey here from day one to year 26 in one instance. There's some characteristics here that you need to come in the door to survive. And I use the word survive the right way, right? Because you're going to be challenged every day. If you need to be comfortable in your life, this is probably not the place for you. When the team meets somebody, I think we dig in first to determine if first they even know who they are. Because this is not the place to figure out who you are. You've got to have a reasonable sense of who you are when you walk in here. What we're really interested in is helping you discover who you could potentially be. Who could you become? And so as we're sitting and evaluating you joining the team, there's going to be a massive amount of work put into your development as a human being. Like, I don't know if there's many places you can go that say that, because you can go get a job somewhere and then make sure that you meet the spec of what the companies look for. We're here, like, we're really interested in, do you have an awareness of who you are? We don't want you to figure it out at our expense. There's other places to do that, and then you can come back. But once you have a decent sense of who you are, then we are going to help you We're going to create the environment for you to be responsible for who you become. But we're going to clear the way from you. We're going to give you opportunities intellectually, spiritually, physically. I think we create the playground for that to be realized more than any other place I know of you can go to work at.